We have all heard the horror stories of the Edgelord in D&D. You know, the ones that murder random NPCs, the ones with the dark and brooding past that just drag the whole tone of the campaign, the ones that want to be the main character, the ones that just ruin your game for the DM and the other players. However, dark and edgy characters aren't necessarily bad, and there are multiple ways to do it right and to make an interesting, complex, and engaging character for your D&D game that has that dark and brooding past, and do it without any of those issues that come in those RPG horror stories. So, today, we're going to look at three characters, one from a video game, one from a television show, and the last one being from a D&D game. That one is the most important. All of these characters have traits that make an edgy character good, and there are lessons that we can take away from every single one. So, join me as we solve the plight of the Edgelord. One major issue I often see with edgy characters is that the players that are playing them often feel like they're boxed in to being more reserved, quieter, more closed off from the rest of the party, that darker, stereotypical personality. However, that is not at all necessary to make a cool, darker character. Enter the Drifter from Destiny. If you've never heard the way this guy talks, he talks like this.
Woo! Are you having fun yet? I am! Ha 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 ha! I'm sorry, were they saying something? Cause they're dead now! Woo! You took them all out!
He is definitely not quiet, not reserved. He's very outgoing and talkative. However, if you read up on the lore, read up on his backstory, listen to his dialogue, you will see that darker side of him. He is a very edgy character, but he's not a drag. He's not boring. He is incredibly fun and interesting, and that is why he is a fan favorite character in the Destiny community. He's fun. Now, edgy characters don't need to act like this, but this is an example of how these darker characters don't have to have that one stereotypical personality. They can be dynamic. While the Drifter is very outgoing in the way he talks, he communicates that darker sense of his personality through his dialogue. Take a listen to this.
Big boy taken outbound. You're messed up. Giant-sized blocker out. Cade would say, well, nothing.
The player gets a sense of what he's about. He is a survivor who does anything necessary to keep on going, and he'll gleefully laugh when players are literally throwing killer aliens at each other. It's not just tone, it's also the content of your roleplay and the way you communicate your character that matters. In summary, the lesson to take from the Drifter is you can make an edgy character dynamic. Don't feel like you have to be boxed into that quiet, reserved personality. You can communicate a darker character while still being outgoing. And the other lesson is that the content of your roleplay is just as important as the tone in which you convey it. Okay, so being a more outgoing character is great, but what about if you want that more reserved personality? Well, a great way to continue to participate in roleplay while keeping a more reserved personality is friendship. Okay. More like a best friend, a character, another player character. Enter Arya Stark. Arya Stark starts Game of Thrones as a very outgoing person, excited spitfire of a child. But as the series goes on, she goes through some stuff, and unfortunately that really dulls her personality. She becomes much more serious, almost a little sadistic. And that is where Sandor Clegane comes into the picture.
I'm hungry. You're hungry. 5 horses, 5 men. More than I feel like killing on an empty stomach.
I know him. The small one. His name is Pulliver. He captured us and took us to Harrenhal. He killed Lommy.
What the fuck's a lommy?
He was my friend.
Arya and Sandor are both very reserved, very edgy characters by the time of their meeting. However, their interactions with each other are some of the best parts of the show. Teaming up with another player can really help to bring the personalities of your more reserved, edgy character out in roleplay situations if you don't want to have them be an outgoing person like the Drifter. Additionally, if you are a more quiet and reserved person in real life, as in you as a person, not your character, aren't very comfortable going out there into the spotlight, this can also help with that. Teaming up with another person to do the whole yes and improv method can be really incredibly helpful. When I was starting out with role-playing, I was a little nervous, and I'm a pretty outspoken kind of person. Teaming up with another player to bounce off of each other was the best decision I ever made early on. So if you or your character are a bit more inwardly focused, then teaming up with someone else can really help with that, as can be seen by Arya and Sandor. Another lesson to take from Arya is the whole killing thing. It's no secret that a lot of edgelords become murder hobos, and if your game is good with murder hobos, then go right ahead, kill to your heart's content. However, if your campaign is a more story-based one with good aligned characters, murder hoboing doesn't really fit. So how will you reconcile a darker character with that sort of thing? Well, again, all of these lessons are going to come back when we talk about the D&D character next. However, Arya also provides a pretty good solution to this. If you watch the show, Arya is definitely not murder hobo. However, she is quite sadistic, especially in season 6 and 7. In the end of season 6, she feeds one of her enemies his children, and then in season 7, she rips off his face and uses it as a disguise to kill the rest of his family with poison. That's really, really messed up. However, those were targets, people that Arya had been hating for years, with tons of buildup, finally leading to that revenge, to the point where, for a lot of people, that was the most satisfying moment in the show. Death and killing may be part of your darker character, but you don't need to kill everything to the point where you ruin the story for your fellow players and your DM. If you have a certain target that you have in mind, or an enemy that you've written into your backstory, then telling your DM can set up something really, really cool. In essence, you don't need to be a murder hobo. Communicating with your DM to set up that sweet payoff can really, really work for you. Basically, death can be part of the narrative without destroying the narrative. Okay, let's finally talk about this fabled D&D character. Who is this person who has risen above the stereotypes of the edgelord while still embracing that darker personality? It's Caleb Widogast. Now I know what you're thinking. I've seen Critical Role. Caleb Widogast isn't an edgelord. Well, think about it. He absolutely is. Caleb has a dark, brooding, mysterious past. He's very reserved. Caleb has a bit of a killer instinct, as seen by his rapid uses of Fireball. Caleb has made morally questionable decisions at times. However, Caleb Widogast, while he is an edgier character, he is absolutely not a problem character, and Liam O'Brien is definitely not a problem player. Caleb Widogast has basically taken all of the things that can make an edgelord absolutely terrible and made them brilliant. Check out this clip.
Oh yeah, it's the place to be.
Okay.
I mean, you What? I'm sorry, what academy are we talking about?
Solstice Academy, you know.
The what? Solstice?
Solstice.
Solstice?
Yeah, that's one.
Soul Train Academy.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, it's a very fancy place.
You
They
know.
teach you magic.
I have heard of it.
And you have arcane talents as well.
Yeah.
Why?
How long have you had yours?
That's a tricky question. I studied when I was younger, and then I gave it up for a while. I've picked it up again recently, so, you know.
Liam O'Brien plays Caleb very reserved, very quiet, but he's still interacting with the group. He's not shutting down their roleplay. He's not being a drag. It shows that you don't necessarily need to be outgoing in order to contribute to roleplay. Of course, an outgoing personality is completely welcome, as I talked about with the Drifter, but here it shows that a more reserved personality is absolutely welcome in many roleplay situations. Remember the last point with Arya? Well, Caleb once again shows this in action. His relationship with Nott is exactly what I'm talking about. Through a more outgoing character like Nott the Brave, Caleb Widogast's personality is brought out, and he has a conduit to interact with the rest of the group. Caleb is balanced and stable, but he does have that darker side to him, as seen with his various fire spells early on in the campaign. Those spells, usually depicted as very heroic in your traditional D&D campaign, for Caleb Widogast, they're tragic and they're sad. They're dramatizing even. That shows that darker personality while again not being unstable. Caleb isn't shooting fireballs at completely random NPCs. Every action he takes has purpose. I know what some of you may be thinking. Caleb Widogast is a character on Critical Role and is played by a professional voice actor. Those tips don't matter because he is a professional. I would heavily disagree. The things that make Caleb Widogast a good, dark character don't have anything to do with the fact that Liam is a professional voice actor. That voice actor talent brings the character out and puts him on screen in front of us in a very entertaining way. However, baseline, the thing that makes him great is the writing. The way Liam has done his personality and his backstory and the way he interacts with the group, that is absolutely what makes Caleb a great character. It is the foundation of what makes him a great character, and that's a foundation that we, as players, and even DMs writing NPCs, can take inspiration from. Caleb Widogast, Arya Stark, and the Drifter are definitely not the de facto characters, the only ones you can take inspiration from. There are tons of darker characters that make for great inspiration for Dungeons & Dragons, but these three characters teach us lessons about how we play our dark and edgy characters, and teach us that those darker characters should be welcome in a campaign. Look, everyone has their edgy phase at one point or another, and for a lot of people, making a darker character is fun. Don't let a couple problem players on RPG Horror Stories ruin the fact that edgy characters can be great. We, as players, just need to take the time to make them great. Alright, that's all of them. If you enjoyed today's episode of Tabletop Tavern Tips, then please do hit that like button. If you want to see more episodes of this series and my other series, RPG Horror Stories, then please do subscribe to Crispy's Tavern. And finally, if you want to let me know any other tips on how to write edgy characters, then go down to the comments down below. In essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.